that need it. So joining me is the commander of Joint Task Force Katrina, Lieutenant General Russel Honoré. Lieutenant General, thank you for being here. There's frankly very few people you want to talk to more in a situation like this when you're talking about how to supply places with what they need. We're in a situation where New York especially, but other states are soon in line for this, urgently needs medical equipment, ventilators, respirators. They also need personal protective equipment. The federal government says it's trying to get it to them. And in talking about a supply chain, we heard yesterday from the Rear Admiral from the Navy, who's coordinating basically all of the product that's coming in from overseas. And then he said he's distributing it to the private market, but then he defended that. Let me just play that bite and have you help us understand why that process is the way it is and whether there's a better way. Let's listen.
This product that we're moving is primarily commercial product that would enter the commercial system and be distributed through financial business transactions between hospitals and these distributors.
So just to clarify, that explains why states say they're bidding like they're on eBay, because the supplies are going to the private sector, and then they have to go there to get the supplies.
That's normally how things. That's normally how things work, right? So I'm not here to disrupt a supply chain.
General Honoré, he's saying he's not there to disrupt the supply chain, isn't he?
Well, that might have been true until the president signed the Defense Reduction Act, because that's the purpose of it. They're confused as to what their number one priority is, but I can understand that way, the policy coming out of the White House, when the White House said they're not supply clerks, they're not shipping clerks. Well, you know what they are. They're not bankers clerks either, but they're trying to send money to the American people and take a lot of credit for it. This is the responsibility of the federal government to provide those goods that are needed after the disaster or during a disaster. That is the sole mission of the Defense Coordinating Agency inside of FEMA. That's why it was created, a logistics element coordinated inside of FEMA with elements from the Defense Logistics Agency, the government General Supply Agency, and to include the Corps Engineer NORCOM. We created that cell some years after Katrina to more effectively coordinate supplies as they are needed to manage logistics after a disaster or during a disaster. And it's not working. And what the Admiral said yesterday, it set me back, because even if these were commercial stocks coming in, the Defense Production Act would have allowed the president to be able to send that where it's needed, not to send it into the commercial market where FEMA and these governors and hospitals independently are competing, trying to buy it. I've never heard of anything. You cannot win a war without focusing your efforts and creating mass and speed. And this, you have it under your control, then you give it to vendors who then try to sell it back to the American people at the highest price. And oh, by the way, if it was working, I would take my hat off to them. But it's not working. Right there in New York, the biggest hot spot where the plane landed, is not working. So I hope we can quickly turn this around, get some accountability.
Let me ask you this. Can you make sense of this statement from Jared Kushner yesterday? Because it certainly left me scratching my head. Let's play it.
The notion of the federal stockpile was it's supposed to be our stockpile. It's not supposed to be state stockpiles that they then use. So we're encouraging the states to make sure that they're assessing the needs, they're getting the data from their local situations, and then trying to fill it with the supplies that we've given them.
Can you make sense of that?
He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. He almost remembered a slide he saw. It is FEMA's responsibility to, along with those agencies that collaborate with them inside that giant FEMA Logistics Coordinating Agency, to send this to one of 6 FEMA warehouses, or if they decide to send it directly to a state. But he has no idea what the hell he's talking about, and he may be confusing the situation more than he's adding to the clarity of the situation.
Senator Schumer yesterday again called on a czar to coordinate all of the supplies, and the president blasted him for that in a lengthy letter, saying that he's a bad senator, saying that he doesn't know what he's talking about, and that that isn't necessary because they have the rear admiral in charge of that. What do you say to that?
Okay, the way this is working, this coordination center that they've put together works under the direction of the FEMA administrator. So you got the entire Department of Defense with all its capability waiting for FEMA to tell them what to do. It's time now for FEMA, now that this thing is 50 states. FEMA wasn't designed to deal with 50 states simultaneously with their 10 regionals. Now it's time for FEMA to hand some of this mission off to the Department of Defense, namely, I would suggest U.S. Northern Command, to help them take the lead. They've divided this country up into about 6 different districts with 2- and 3-star generals that can coordinate directly with the governors. I think we need to take that and exploit that with giving the Department of Defense a mission, as opposed to the way FEMA want to operate, a mission assignment, telling them to take an airplane and fly it from New York to California with 1 million masks on it. You're handicapping one of the most capable organizations you have. And they also have the United States Transportation Command, which is another 4-star. So you got about 8 4-star generals working through the Rear Admiral and the FEMA administrator. You're not using the power and the capacity of the Department of Defense to defend the nation, because the nation must be defended. That's why we have a Department of Defense, is to defend the United States of America. So let's bring it in and use all of the tools in the toolbox, as opposed to just using parts of it and cherry picking what parts you want to use. This cannot fit itself in a 1-hour news conference. We got to have a chain of command that has somebody, a L&O team, a liaison team in every hospital in America to take account of what's in it, man. And they have not done that yet.
And they better do it. And they better do it quickly, because time is it's just not a luxury that we have right now. And then you have Jared Kushner talking about the National Reserve. I just want to add this so our viewers know. Senator Cory Gardner from Colorado is currently calling on an investigation into reports that thousands of ventilators that are already in the national stockpile that don't work. So we're going to find out more about that. Lieutenant General Russel Honoré, thank you so much for joining us and helping us understand what is not happening. We do appreciate your time, sir, and stay safe.
Test.
I'll talk to an ER doctor.
Test.
Thank